Most leaders think they're creating an open environment, but their team can still stay quiet and things can still feel tense. You can ask for input, try to run a meeting and stay engaged, but people can still just sit there. If that happens, when it comes to decision making, you're not getting all the information you need, which leads to bad decisions. So today we're going to talk about how to create psychological safety at work so that your team is engaged and feels safe enough to share what they really think. Now, oftentimes we hear the bad stories about leaders who don't care what anybody thinks, unfortunately. But most of the time when we get to leaders and we're talking to leaders, they do care. And this is a real concern of theirs. So how do you help people when they're facing this?
Yeah, it's a great question. It seems like the question is, as a leader, how do you get good information and not allow your authority or the power you have as a leader cause people to either shut down and be afraid to say anything or tell you exactly what they think you want to hear, right? That's the thing that happens a lot of times with someone who has authority. And very often it happens. It can happen with like a senior leader and their direct reports, but oftentimes those other executives many of them get pretty good at being candid and upfront. It happens a lot more often when you have a senior leader and they're working with a larger group of leaders who might be two, three levels distant in the organization as far as being not direct reports. So either way, that causes a problem. So I've had a lot of leaders. Usually it's the CEO, but it's the senior leader in charge of whatever this group is. Very often you're bringing a group together for training, for problem solving, for cultural development, or other things. And the leaders wonder and they ask, how do I help people feel safe to speak up? How do I help them know that I'm not looking for specific answers where they don't have to pander to me or tell me things they think I want to hear? And oftentimes what they'll do is they'll suggest maybe I should just not come. Should I just not be there and let you have the meeting without me? And the idea behind that is maybe if they're all talking behind my back, they'll be more candid, I suppose. But that's certainly not a cultural aspect I would want to encourage. So I like the statement begin with the end in mind, right? So what I really tell people in a situation like that is let's model the cultural norms that you're trying to create from the very beginning. So let's find ways that you can be in this meeting as the leader and you can make it safe for others to speak up and to speak candidly about the information they have or that information that would be available. It seems like there's on one end people think, well, okay, if I come to the meeting, should I just say nothing? The opposite is oftentimes the leader will speak up, but they want to tell people what to think. I've actually heard people say, heard CEOs say, "Oh, you can't think that," when someone says something. Now, I understood their concern. Someone was saying, "Oh, I'm afraid." Let's say they even said, I'm afraid to speak up in this meeting." Oh, you can't think that is not the right response to that particular concern. And I give that concern only as an example. So whatever it is, if the leader feels like, oh, I don't want you to think that way, telling them what they can and cannot think is not a way to create psychological safety. We'll talk about what are those skills a little bit later. But first off, you have to start with a strategy as a leader. One, I guess step one would be, yes, I'm going to be involved and I want to start by modeling the cultural norms that I would like to see be part of our company, our organization, and then figure out what does that really look like. We know it's not sitting there silently. If you're sitting silent in the meeting, you might think, well, I'm making it safe for other people to speak up. But people look at the boss sitting there quietly and they feel like they're being judged. What's he thinking? What's she gonna think of me? Or is she waiting for me to say something wrong so she can correct me? So that's the or is he taking notes? And it'll come up later in my performance review or whatever. So sitting there quietly can be frightening.
I like that you mentioned make sure you're modeling the cultural norms that you want to see. Often people don't understand that there can be this conflict between what people think they want, but what they're actually setting up. It's a very personal example from my experience. We have the Marine Corps environment, right? And this is a little while ago, but is very command and control, very structured. You have a chain of command and you follow that chain of command. And if you don't follow that chain of command, someone's going to tell you about it in a not very nice way. I got in trouble with a gunnery sergeant once for talking to his boss, right? He was mad at me about that. It didn't matter that I didn't go talk to his boss. His boss came and talked to me, but I shouldn't have done that apparently. But that is the whole setup there. We had a commander once who liked to come and talk to my platoon on Fridays. Fridays in any environment, right? People just want to go home. Friday afternoon, they're just done. We're ready to leave now. But he would come and he would give us this pep lecture, I think is the best way I could describe it. I think he meant it as a pep talk. It was a lecture about who the heck knows what. And then at the end, he would always say, so are there any questions? Well, of course, there aren't any questions. This guy was like 2, 3 levels above us, and we have been drilled into our skulls since boot camp. You do not skip the chain of command. Well, then he just stand there. Well, you have any questions for me? Well, no, sir, no one has any questions for you. And then he pulled this move. Well, we're not leaving until I hear at least 3 questions. Okay, cool. So then you get the inane questions like, well, do you have any plans for the weekend? And then that will get somebody in trouble for being flippant. Are we deploying soon? We all know we're not. And if we are, our NCOs are going to tell us, but we're going to ask you stupid questions that we don't need. And we're going to lose respect for you because you feel like it feels like the performance. It's not real. That's not the culture. I'm pretty sure it's not the culture you want to model, right?
You know, it's interesting that there's a reason that our business, right, is called influence on purpose. A lot of times people don't understand the influence they're actually having. So they influence accidentally instead of on purpose. And that was accidental influence, right? It
Mhm.
really came across as manipulative. You kind of talked about getting stupid answers. It made me think of the phrase play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? He was
Right.
playing a stupid game, and it was perfectly designed for him to win stupid prizes. He was not going to get good information. I wasn't there, and I can't judge him from that
I'm sure he
perspective.
meant well.
I'm sure he did, but
He did.
understanding how that pattern works, comes across as manipulative, right? And it really comes across as very egocentric. I'm going to have this meeting, and people are going to just feel safe with me because I'm a wonderful leader, and they're going to tell me things, and then I can go talk to my commanding officers and tell them how wonderful I am and what a great meeting I had with my team, right? So you can tell when it's self-centered, is you have to become self-aware to be an effective leader. Now, here's the danger point, and I think this is the point that sounds like this leader and many others cross this Rubicon without even knowing it, is they go from being self-aware, or maybe they missed that boat altogether, but what they become is self-absorbed. It's easy when you're reading a report on the influence you're having to become uh, I heard someone call it navel gazing, right? Someone's just looking so intensely at themselves they can't see the impact they're having at around. So you can do a self-assessment and still not have a paradigm shift, so to speak, a change in how you think and how you see things. So I guess that's a way of saying that in the context of this conversation, becoming self-aware is important, but you do that by seeing or being perceptive of how others see you, the influence you're having on them. So go back to your 2, 3 layers up commanding officer, right? What was his purpose? Now we could guess what his purpose was. I love the question, what do I really want and what am I acting like I want? Those are very often two different things. You were put in a no-win situation because had you given him candid feedback that was fresh and real and maybe raw, you would have been setting up your leaders to look bad, especially in
Mhm.
that particular hierarchical chain of command type mindset or culture.
Is that the mission? Psychological safety is the mission?
Right.
Why does it
No.
matter?
So why does psychological
Wait,
safety
you don't
matter?
go to work just to be nice people? That's not it. Not the point.
Sure it is.
Okay, all right.
And then we don't get concerned about the customer. We don't get concerned about
Mhm.
operations or efficiency or anything, right? So obviously, no, a psychological safety is a means to the end, right? So the better I can create psychological safety as a leader, the higher quality information I and we have to make decisions. The better our decisions, the better our execution, and the more likely we are to accomplish our mission. What's our mission? Our mission is to understand who our stakeholders are and how we best serve them. I don't serve the customer well if I don't have good information. I don't serve owners or investors well if I don't have good information. I don't serve the employees for whom I have stewardship if I don't have good information. So really, good information leads to good decisions. Good decisions leads to good outcomes. So how do you then handle that in the meeting itself? What between being absolutely silent and feeling like you're stalking your team, which you're not, or telling them what to think and what to say and giving them the information they need, kind of that, what do you call it, a motivational lecture? You know, that's probably the other end of the spectrum in some terms. The balance is not knowing whether I should speak up or what answers I should have. The impact or the influence comes by knowing how do I ask good questions and what would effective listening look like. If you want to make it psychologically safe for others, you need to know how to ask good questions and how to listen well. What that doesn't look like is those setup questions. And the setup in your case, the setup questions were ones that would have put you in a bad situation with your direct boss or your direct commander. Uh, Another way it's a setup question is if they have the right answer and they're asking you the question so that they can give you the right answer. I personally do not like those set. I try not to do it to others. I don't like it done to me. Making someone look stupid so you can look smart is not how you create psychological safety. So it really comes down to what kind of questions do you ask and how do you listen well?
I think you talked about sharing your intent a little bit earlier, right? Why your intent, right, is to accomplish the mission together. And that's why psychological safety matters. Hopefully we all want to be nice people, but that's not why we go to work. We don't go to work to be nice people or to accomplish something, a shared mission that we all get paid for, right? And hopefully don't absolutely hate. Um, so I was at a major, it was my XO, my last duty station in the Marine Corps. I was in charge of substance abuse control program. Basically, I was in charge of making sure Marines didn't get high or drunk. Had them come in and pee in cups. It was fascinating. And everybody knows that when you come back from leave, when you come back from a holiday, you're going to pee in a cup. At least half of you are going to pee in a cup. Well, my major wanted to get this all done at our annual training. Another fascinating event where we basically get lectures and slideshows for 2 days straight in a big theater. 500 Marines, roughly, all in this one place. They're like, but we'll just knock it out at the same time, right? We'll all be together. We'll just have them go out and get these urinalyses in the heads at the I lost the word bathrooms on this training day. I kind of thought that sounds really, really hectic, actually. Marines up and down and in and out. And so Well, let me look into that, sir. And I trotted over to our training department and this is what he wants. And the guy said, yeah, absolutely not. There's no way I'm going to certify training with that happening at the same time. That's not how that works. Great. Now I get to go trot back and tell him that. And I did trotted right back in. Yes, sir. It's not going to happen. Here's why. It's not going to be effective training. We're going to lose track of people. I'm going to have to keep track of all these samples in the middle of a theater 2 miles away on base and then ship them all back. It can make a huge problem if something happens and you've got to court martial someone or have a judicial process. That chain of custody is problematic, potentially problematic. And on top of that, Gunny over there at S3 is not going to sign off on any of that training if people are up and down and in and out in the middle. He stopped and looked at me. Okay, what are we going to do then? Well, we can do this. Okay, do it. He's a Marine. He wasn't super touchy-feely, but that was it. He listened. He took the feedback, told him, no, sir, you're wrong. It's not going to happen. He said, hey, okay. And then we did it. And it was safe for me to do that. I realized that fairly quickly. It was safe for me to push back. It was also safe for me to screw up every once in a while. I did, unfortunately. Usually with something as simple as not putting in the right date on a urinalysis, but that matters if you're trying to court martial somebody because they come back high as all get out from a concert, which happened a couple of times. He made it safe to challenge him, and he made it safe to tell him you're wrong, and he made it safe to say I need help or I don't know. He was okay with that answer because he knew I would come back like I did. So I don't think psychological safety isn't about being nice. I think I've mentioned that before. It's not about being the most friendly or the most popular. It's about being the one who makes it safe to accomplish the mission together.
So he sounded like someone who was more focused on the outcome than he was on his ego or
Exactly.
his political standing within the organization, right? So I like that. It's really I tell my clients very regularly, never let someone guess your motives. If they have to guess your motive, they're going to guess negatively, and odds are they're going to guess wrong. So a lot of people say, "Well, I'm good at reading other people." Odds are you're not, because most people aren't, and you're part of most people. So that's why, going back to your statement of make it clear up front, here's what I'm trying to accomplish and here's why. Let people use their own discretionary thinking as to contribute to the outcome. So, how do you do that? What kind of questions do you ask? It depends. There are a number of different. One is just ask, "Hey, what time is it?" Right? That's just a question. "Hey, what are your thoughts on this?" That's another question. Mirror is a type of questioning if you see very strong emotion. Let's say you see, sometimes we perceive strong emotion when someone gets loud or aggressive or they start crying or there's some outwardly demonstrable. But when people get really quiet, that's also a strong emotion. People get quiet and withdraw because of strong emotion. So when we think, oh, strong emotion is if they get really loud, I can mirror that. I can reflect back to them what I'm seeing as a way of, okay, I can see you're getting really loud. What's going on here? Or I can see your face is getting red. I can see you threw a dish at me. What was that all about? Right. So no one's ever thrown a dish at me that I know.
That's good.
So the other side of that, though, is what if they get really quiet? Okay, by the way you got really quiet, I wonder if there's something you'd have to say and you feel like I'm making it not safe for you. How can I assure you that it's okay to tell me I want to hear what you have to say because I want to make good decisions? Go back to my motive, right? So mirroring, and think about that in terms of an actual mirror. Think of a mirror and light and the mirroring question and emotion as parable. No, that's not the right word. Come up with the right word. I can't remember what, but as symbolic of. Okay, let's just say symbolic of. So that the mirroring question is symbolic of the actual physical mirror and light. Now, when I'm done with this, we'll stop and the perfect word will come to mind and
Of course.
we'll just go without it. So, anyway, if you're holding up a mirror to light, it does two things. It not only reflects the light back the direction from which it came, but it also keeps the light from getting through to the other side of the mirror. A mirroring question can do that if you're dealing with someone who's having a strong emotion. Whether it's a fight or flight emotion doesn't matter. If they've totally shut down or if they've got loud and maybe even aggressive. Because what it does, first off, it lets the other person see what you're seeing. Oftentimes when we start to become upset, we don't realize it and don't own it. So it lets the other person own and be accountable for their own emotion. The other thing it does is it keeps me thinking at a higher level. If I think in terms of asking the question rather than respond to the emotion in kind, it keeps that emotion from coming through and affecting my thought process and shutting me down, right? Especially if it's someone who says, well, I'll tell you what, boss, the reason I'm not giving you answers is because you're a jerk and you're mean and you're a bully. Okay. If I speak out of my own authority and ego, my response probably isn't going to be really good. But if I'm really mission centered and I really want to create psychological safety, I might put aside the disrespect for now and maybe forever and say, wow, I had no idea I was coming across that way. Tell me more about that. And I can tell you, as a boss, there was a time or two where I had to have that conversation when I finally made it safe for someone to speak up. And they said, well, let me tell you why I didn't speak, because here's how I see you. I had no idea you saw me that way. And first off, I apologize. That's never been my intent. Two, let's understand how that happened and what we can do differently, what I need to do differently to make that not happen. Right. So um, sometimes it was just a matter of explaining intent, and someone could say, oh, now I can see, because they had committed the fundamental attribution error, right? They saw my behavior and interpreted it as something that it wasn't. So when they understood the intent, we were good. Sometimes it really is that fast and that simple. Other times, if I've done something that has damaged the relationship, it's going to take a little more time. So that's what mirroring does. Um, so ask, mirror. The third question or inquiry skill, we'll call it, is to paraphrase. That's if you're getting something that's kind of garbled and you're not real sure what they're saying. So you put it in your own words and give it back to them. Okay, so it sounds like you're saying, and they can either say, yeah, you get me, or they can say, no, you're clueless. And then to ask a few more questions and listen a little bit better, right? And then prime can kind of come along with mirroring if someone is totally shut down. So the fourth type of question or inquiry skill is called a prime. That's if you're getting absolutely nothing, to say, okay, you're being really quiet, which is mirroring. Could it be this? Could it be that you're afraid of how I might respond to the answer? Or could it be you're not sure? Just give it your best guess. It has a similar benefit to paraphrasing, because either you guessed right and they go, oh, you are willing to talk about that, or you guessed wrong and they can say, no, it's not that, it's this. Because the odds are, I don't know, there's no guarantee of this, but the odds are the thing you're guessing is more harsh than the thing they're thinking. So when you give your prime or your guess, you're showing that even this I'm willing to talk about. And those are ways to create, those are some of the skills of creating psychological safety so that people can speak up. So you're combining clarity of your intent with the ability to help people have that conversation and demonstrating that safety. So it creates both the willingness and ability for people to contribute to meetings. As you do that, now we're going to go all the way back to the beginning of our conversation. Why then does the boss not just sit quietly or avoid going to the meeting? Because when she learns to use these skills, she's not just having a good meeting, she's creating a culture where good meetings are more likely in the future.
So modeling the culture you want, paired with a healthy dose of humility, it sounds like,
Yeah.
and knowing the right questions to ask to help people feel safe, to help people feel that they are contributing to a common cause, not feeding or challenging your ego. So I think behind a lot of this is just going to be fear. Obviously,
Yeah.
what's the opposite of feeling safe? It's being afraid. And
Yeah.
so how are you addressing that fear and turning it into trust?
So I would also add, if this is the first time you're trying to apply these skills and you find that people are very quiet, the odds are you have been doing something as a leader where they feel unsafe. It's going to take time to rebuild that, to build that culture. Um, that's one of the things we handle as leadership coaches. Get a coach. Get somebody who will work with you that will help you see from yourself from eyes other than just your own, and create that, really kind of creates accountability. Not that your coach is your boss, but you know you're going to have those conversations and you become more accountable to yourself when you work well with a good leadership coach. So I know this was really about how do you handle that meeting. The chances are, if if you need to make significant progress in your culture, knowing how to handle one meeting isn't going to fix your culture. It'll help. It'll certainly move you in the right direction, but it's not going to fix your culture. If there was something we'd like to have somebody take away from this video, the probably the first thing is we really deeply care about healthy cultures. We deeply care that people deserve good leaders, and they should be working someplace where they feel safe, where they feel they're contributing, where they feel valued, and where they're a part of a good work. That's important. I think when people start to apply these principles, they can move toward a culture like that. Now, this second part might sound self-serving, and maybe it is a little bit, but I would say if you're going to go through this on this journey, find a navigator who's been through the process again and knows how the transition works. They have two things. One, there's experience of having been through it many times before, and there's a perspective where their whole job is to watch and help guide through that cultural change that you're trying to create. As the leader, you got a lot of jobs and you're in that hamster wheel. You can't always you don't always have that perspective. You can't always see it from that vantage point. So we love doing that, obviously, because we care deeply about people's cultures. And two, it's what we do well. But even if it's not us, those two bits of advice I think would be valuable to any leader who really wants to create what we call a regenerative culture, a culture that doesn't wear people down and burn them out and have a really high cost to getting things done.
You want help on this process of creating a regenerative culture because it's so easy to read something, but then to turn around and make that real,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of work and you're already busy,
Yeah.
right? So, so there's
So
help.
I'd say bare minimum, if you're interested in regenerative culture and what we have to say about it, we have a book. I would get the book Influence on Purpose, and how leaders can build the 5 principles leaders can use to build regenerative cultures. Um, and beyond that, get somebody to help you with the process, somebody that's been through it before and someone who that's their job.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.